6 years ago, during the Queen's 90th birthday, there were 15 working royals. These are family members who represent the Queen at events. Charles has suggested cutting that number to just 8 senior members for financial reasons. Now, Camilla is the Queen consort and automatically part of those 8. Royal history has its secrets, but nothing prepared Princess Anne and young Prince George for what they found inside Queen Camilla's private bedroom. What started as a simple visit quickly revealed something shocking, leaving both the monarchy and the public stunned. Was it an ancient relic, a hidden message, or something more scandalous? This discovery might change everything we thought about Queen Camilla's role in the royal family. The truth can no longer stay hidden. The Queen has approved calling Camilla Queen Consort, a royal walk and a shocking find. What began as a normal walk through Clarence House in May 2025 has turned into a story that could challenge the monarchy itself. Discussions about slimming down the royal family have gained momentum in recent months. Many want fewer senior royals and a more modern, streamlined image. Yet Princess Anne stands firm against these ideas. She believes everyone plays an important part in keeping royal traditions alive. But behind closed doors, something much deeper has been uncovered. During a visit to Camilla's room, Princess Anne and George found something unexpected. Their visit wasn't intrusive. They weren't looking for secrets. But when they entered Camilla's bedroom, they found something in a drawer that froze the moment. There was a folded letter, old and written by Frances Shand Kidd, Princess Diana's mother. It was no regular note. It was personal and emotional, filled with secrets never shared before. The letter talked about Diana's last months in the royal family. It described her sadness, her loneliness, and how she felt isolated behind palace walls. While Diana was loved by many, Frances wrote of a woman suffering quietly. She was trapped in a world that didn't truly accept her pain. The real question is why this private letter was in Camilla's possession. Was it kept as a painful memory, hidden intentionally, or forgotten over time? None of these answers make the find any less shocking. Camilla has worked hard to build a better image and stay away from past troubles. This discovery threatens to drag her back into the hardest part of her story. For Prince George, the future king, this was more than a surprise. It was a moment to face. The next generation watches how decisions are made today. The letter made even old royal bonds seem fragile. To truly understand the importance of this letter, we must see who Frances Shankid was. She was not just Diana's mother, but a woman shaped by duty and loss. Their relationship was strained, and this letter feels like her final confession, or maybe a desperate attempt to find peace. We need to ask what pain Frances carried from her life in royal circles to her personal heartbreak. Keep reading to learn the hidden story behind the letter. It's the quiet turmoil behind her calm smile. To grasp the emotional weight of the letter found in Queen Camilla's room, first imagine the woman who wrote it, Frances Shand Kidd herself. Born into privilege at Park House on the Sandringham estate, Frances knew royal life from birth. She was born on January 20th, 1936. Her mother, Ruth Rowe, served as lady-in-waiting to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Her father, Maurice Roche, was the 4th Baron Fermoy and a close friend of King George V. She didn't just witness royal traditions, she grew up in them. Raised in a world of strict rules and high expectations, Frances carried the title the Honorable from a young age. She was taught to be gracious, speak softly, and hide her private life. Beneath her perfect image of pearls and pressed skirts was a young woman struggling with a life she never chose. At 18, she made headlines. On June 1st, 1954, she married John Spencer, Viscount Althorp, at Westminster Abbey. Queen Elizabeth II attended her wedding. Her marriage was called a grand event, linking her to one of Britain's top families. She became the youngest woman to marry there in almost 50 years. Her life seemed full of glamour and privilege, but deep inside, she felt weighed down by strict rules and her duty. Then she met Peter Shan Kidd in 1966. He was a wealthy Australian wallpaper maker who was charming and different. Their connection was quick and tempting. In 1967, she did something shocking. She left her husband and asked for a divorce. This broke the image of her as an obedient aristocrat. At that time, divorce was still taboo, especially for the upper class. The news of her choice shocked many. With 4 young children, including Diana, the media turned against her. They focused on her life with criticism. The fight over custody was fierce. It was not the freedom she had hoped for. Instead, her pain became a matter for the whole nation. Her private suffering turned into a public spectacle. The scars from this period stayed with her and her children for many years. It was a wound that never really healed. The cost of Frances Shan Kidd's rebellion went beyond public shame and court headlines. It reached deep into a child's fragile heart. When Frances left the Spencer family home in 1967, she believed she was escaping a stifling life. What she didn't see was how her choice would tear her daughter Diana's world apart. The betrayal became clear during a custody fight in 1969 at the London Family Division Court. In a shock, Frances's mother, Ruth Roche, Lady Fairmoy, testified against her daughter. Ruth argued that John Spencer was the more stable and capable parent. This turned a family dispute into a public wound. The court was tense and chaotic. The betrayal echoed loudly. The judge decided in John Spencer's favor. He gained full custody of Sarah, Jane, Charles, and Diana. Frances lost everything: her marriage, her social standing, and her children. Diana, only 6 then, couldn't understand her heartbreak. One day, her mother was tucking her in and gently stroking her hair. The next day, she was gone. No warning or good explanation that a child could understand. Diana carried that pain for the rest of her life. It affected her relationships, her mental health, and her self-esteem. Years later, she told friends it felt like her mother had left her. Diana became known as the People's Princess. But behind the palace walls, she struggled to believe she was truly loved. Though she loved her father, she longed for a mother's warmth. That feeling had been taken from her. Every time Frances returned to her life, there was tension. Love, resentment, and sadness mixed in every encounter. Their history was too deep to erase. Diana wanted closeness, but the gap made by years of absence never really closed. Then, in 1976, her father married Reine, Countess of Dartmouth. She was a glamorous, sharp-tongued woman and the daughter of novelist Barbara Cartland. As a teenager, Diana clashed strongly with her new stepmother. She reportedly called her acid rain, mocking her perceived coldness. Diana felt more pushed out of her father's house. The home that once held her childhood memories now felt strange and unwelcoming. Meanwhile, Frances's second marriage was falling apart. By 1988, her relationship with Peter Shan Kidd was broken beyond repair. He left her to go back to his first wife. The woman who had taken risks for love was left alone again. Then, in 1981, a new chapter began. Diana, then 19, got engaged to Prince Charles. Overnight, Frances was back in the public eye. The same aristocracy that had cast her aside now looked at her as the future queen's mother. It was a strange kind of justice filled with irony. For Frances, it felt unreal. The daughter she had lost to courts and tradition was now almost queen. But beneath the royal story, the truth was more complex. Their mother-daughter bond, once broken, never really healed. Frances attended the wedding on July 29, 1981, at St. Paul's Cathedral, stood among powerful leaders and royalty. She was more a guest than a mother. From afar, she watched as Diana entered a world of castles, rules, and pressure. As Diana's marriage began to fall apart, Frances saw her own pain reflected in her daughter's struggles. She understood the loneliness of royal life, the coldness from her husband, and the weight of public eyes. Unlike Frances, Diana didn't leave. She stayed not for herself, but for her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. She held on to hope that things might improve. "I don't always notice that," she'd admit. Despite sensing Diana's emotional storms, Frances stayed distant. Their contact was rare, their connection strained by years of unsaid feelings and different choices. In 1997, after Diana divorced Prince Charles publicly, Frances gave an interview to Hello magazine. She said Diana was happy to give up her Royal Highness title, but instead of feeling understood, Diana felt betrayed. That comment broke their fragile bond. Furious and hurt, Diana never spoke to her mother again. An unspoken silence stretched on until tragedy struck. On August 31, 1997, Diana died in a car crash in Paris. The grief was overwhelming. For Frances, it was even sharper. There had been no last talk or apology, only silence. Filled with guilt and sadness, Frances wrote a handwritten note to the world. She thanked them for their kindness. With trembling hands, she said she returned Diana to her rest with pride, love, and respect. Behind closed doors, Frances's quiet goodbye was soft but heavy. Soon, another royal story arose, one rooted not in the past, but in the tricky present. It started quietly, over a simple lunch at Clarence House. Princess Anne, always clear and dutiful, arrived with purpose. Her bond with King Charles III was strong. Yet in recent months, she noticed changes inside the palace. Camilla's growing influence, her private routines, and concerns over Charles's health weighed on her. The king had stepped back from many royal duties, citing fatigue and the need to rest. Camilla became more visible, more decisive, and, some said, more powerful. For outsiders, it seemed like a natural change. But Anne had seen enough palace shifts to tell when something was wrong. When Camilla began canceling events, claiming exhaustion, Anne grew worried. She didn't trust easily. She wanted answers about the future of the crown. One early spring Saturday at Windsor, Anne decided to visit Camilla's private rooms without warning. She came with Prince George, who was just 11. George stayed with Anne for the weekend. The boy was curious and thoughtful. He found Anne's honesty refreshing. She saw in him the future ruler who might need to face truths beyond books. Camilla's rooms felt strangely silent. Usually open and informal, her doors were locked and curtains pulled tight. A chambermaid, hesitant and nervous, told Anne that Queen Camilla had left early that morning for her private estate, Raymill House in Wiltshire. She had gone alone without her usual staff. This surprised many. Raymill House had always been Camilla's private retreat, separate from her official royal duties. Leaving so suddenly without leaving a note was unusual for her. Inside Clarence House, especially in Camilla's area, the silence wasn't just quiet. It felt like a calculation. Anne and George looked at each other, both sensing something bigger was happening. The palace was quiet, but a tense silence filled the air. Something unspoken weighed heavily on everyone. Behind the untouched walls of Camilla's room, a discovery awaited that neither of them expected. What did Princess Anne and Prince George find that shattered the silence? Brace yourself. This could change everything. The old chest, forgotten in time, stood as a silent witness to secrets. As the quiet stretched on inside Camilla's empty room, Anne's instincts sharpened. Something was clearly wrong. The silence was not accidental. It was planned. The room, sealed and untouched, lacked all signs of life. No fresh flowers on the table, no half-drunk cup by the window. The air carried only a faint scent of lavender that seemed to come from a different era. Anne refused to ignore the strange feeling. She called the palace steward and, with authority, asked for the master key. As second in command, but not afraid to lead, Anne unlocked the door herself. She entered slowly with young George close behind, his eyes wide with curiosity. He sensed something was very wrong. The room's stillness felt almost staged. Velvet curtains were pulled tight, letting in little light. Hidden in a corner behind a faded screen, George saw something. A large old trunk with a brass lock. Its wood was darkened with age, dust layered across it, but the engraving on top caught the light. He moved closer, eyes growing wider. "DS," he whispered. Anne's breath caught. "George, step back," she said firmly. Her voice was steady but tense. She moved toward the trunk, taking a pair of lace gloves from Camilla's vanity. She handled the old lock carefully. With a soft click, the trunk creaked open. Inside, time had stopped. Carefully folded inside were many personal items. They hadn't been seen since Princess Diana's death in 1997. Letters written in her graceful handwriting. Private journals filled with raw thoughts. Black and white photos of unposed moments. Diana laughing with her sons, looking out palace windows. Walks alone that showed a quieter side of her. There were also small keepsakes. A ballet program with notes in the margins, a pressed flower, and a tiny music box that still played softly. Anne gently pulled out one sealed envelope, its edges yellowed but wax crest intact. She didn't open it yet. George stayed silent, understanding that this was more than just the past. It was part of his family's hidden story, a story that was never meant to be found in Camilla's room. Whispered secrets from the past. Anne stood still, the air thick with history and unasked questions. Prince George watched her closely, trying to read her emotions behind her calm face. Among the letters, one was set apart, folded hurriedly and with a strange sense of urgency. He carefully picked it up. The handwriting was clearly Diana's. The note said it was for her sons, in case anything happened to her. The weight of those words sent a cold shiver down his spine.